Guys, welcome back. This is episode 6 of Suitcase Divas. My name is Denise Diabaldi with Redbirds Travel.
I'm Cheryl Garcia with ABCD Adventures.
Yeah, and so today we are going to talk about why to use a travel agent and things that you want to, just we'll start with why to use a travel agent. So, what do you think, Cheryl?
Well, a lot of people ask, why do I need to use a travel agent, especially with all the online options that they have? And if they can do the research for themselves, if they can go on and book online in group packaging, whatever, why would they use us? And I think one of the biggest perks, I think there's two important things using a travel agent. The very first one is we do a lot of the research. And this is
And
really
we've been trained. This is our job. We do extensive training to multiple locations so that we know the best all-inclusive in Jamaica in a certain price point. Or if you're looking for a more low-key vibe, I would send you to Aqua versus, one of the Rio party all night resorts. That's our whole job, is to know where to send our clients based on their needs and what they're looking out of a vacation.
right. And our training comes from the vendors directly. So, like for cruise lines, each cruise line that we have access to, they supply us with their specific training. So we get the in-depth training on that specific cruise line. Same thing with hotels. We've got specific training for hotels and destinations. This is one of the things that I found really interesting is you can become very knowledgeable and sometimes certified as like a Hawaii destination
Yeah.
expert, and even activities like or amusement parks like Disney. There are a lot of people that just specialize in Disney and go through Disney's very intensive
Their
training.
college of knowledge
Right.
is
So
no joke. It is like college.
that is
Those
a slight
classes are
difference.
hardcore.
Right. They are. I haven't finished my Disney because that is a big one. And I don't have a lot of clients. Most of like we're empty nesters now. So a lot of them don't have a lot of kids and are now more
Yeah.
doing inclusives in the destinations. But that is the big thing is we have done so much training on those things. And that's just a little bit extra knowledge. If you go to Google to specifically a specific place, like an all inclusive in Mexico, you're going to get a whole list of options. We've
It's
gone,
overwhelming.
yeah. So that's
It can be overwhelming.
of the reason to use a travel agent, and not just for locations, but transportation. There are so many different ways of transportation now between Ubers and Lyfts and your public transportation, your flights, your
Well, and if it's a package deal, typically, like when I book an all-inclusive, I will make sure that their transfers are included. So you show up at the airport, you get to your destination, and then there's somebody that is going to be taking you to the resort. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's like a one-stop shop.
right, and
And
you're making sure that they are being picked up by someone sponsored or
reputable.
yes, from the resort instead of just having to go outside the airport and get into a random public
True.
transport.
Yes, I agree with that. And something that a lot of people don't realize is when you book with Expedia or a third party vendor like that, you're already paying a fee for their service. Like they're not doing anything. You're not getting a service, but it's included in the price. Whereas if we are booking it for you, we're not charging you a fee. Our services are free. We get paid by the vendor, but then we're finding you the place. We're making sure that it's a reputable place. We're getting you from point A to point B. So there's really not a good reason not to use a travel agent.
Right. And that leads into our next point, which a lot of people have questions about. Do they have to pay for a travel agent service? And if not, how do travel agents get paid? Which is a great question and can be confusing because there are a lot of different types out there. We,
Right.
ABC Adventures and Redbirds Travel, do not charge for our booking services or our research.
Correct.
Um,
Right.
Getting that info. But there are travel agents that do. So it's
Yes.
really important that you vet. I'm going to say this throughout the whole thing. Always vet your travel agent. Not every travel agent is going to be a great fit for you, and that's okay. They can usually
And
recommend someone, or you might have to do some more digging.
I was gonna say I get so many referrals from word of mouth because people know that I do good research. People know that I'm going to put you in a place that is amazing because I've done my research. I have been doing this for 20 years. So I know what I'm doing and they have great experiences and they refer their friends to me. I get so many referrals from word of mouth. And that's how I pick a lot of my stuff too. I read reviews, I go by word of mouth. Somebody that's been there that says, "Oh my gosh, this place was amazing," is going to be better than somebody that's disgruntled that because they didn't get, the upgrade to their room. Because a lot of people write bad reviews, but that's why if you know somebody, I think I trust them a little bit more.
Right. And we have all of our coworkers or all of our co-travel agents that are we can use as resources. If we haven't been somewhere, we know a travel agent that has sent a client there and we can get their feedback directly from the source of how was the booking, how was the check-in and stuff like that. So just another great we have tons of resources for us that we
Right.
give as the benefit for our clients. They don't have to do all the work.
And because we have been around for such a long time, over 70 years in the business as a company, we do have extra perks because we do such a high volume with these different resorts and these different cruise lines that sometimes they'll give us extra onboard credit if you book through us. Sometimes you'll get extra bottle of rum or tequila or just in resort incentives if you book through us because we have been around and we have so many vendors and preferred vendors. So that is another reason
Right.
to
So
book
if
with an
a
agent.
travel agent isn't getting paid by their clients, let's talk about how they actually do get paid.
So we get paid by the vendors. Like if I'm booking a Royal Caribbean cruise, I'm getting paid a percentage of the commission directly from Royal Caribbean. If I book, and that's what I love about Virgin too. I sound like kind of a Virgin broken record, but the great thing about Virgin is they will pay us the commission, and then they also pay on drink packages. They also pay on spa treatments. They also pay on if you do any excursions, we get a percentage of that too. But if we do get percentages on just the group bundles too, directly through the vendor. And sometimes we work with wholesale vendors. So like something that you could book for $4,000 through Expedia, I might be able to get you a wholesale discount price and get it at like 2 grand. And then I can add a commission to that. And because I'm giving you such a good deal and I can get a little bit of extra commission there. So we have that opportunity to get commissions through the vendor, or if we get a wholesale, we can add a little bit onto our bottom line, and the customer is still at the end of the day getting a discount that they
Yeah,
couldn't have gotten themselves. So it's a win-win, honestly.
it is. And there are some things that we book that we don't get commissions on. We don't get commissions on flights. So
True.
if you have a travel agent that constantly books your flights and it's just a flight, just remember they're doing
Mhm.
that as a service. They're
As a
not getting
courtesy.
yeah,
Yep.
they're not getting any commission. So there are things that travel agents book that they don't get commission on. But I look at what I do as a concierge type thing. Like the client comes to me and says, I need this experience. What's the
Right.
best way for me to get that for them, regardless of what how I'm getting that commission through? Like in the end, it's am I checking all of their boxes? Am I getting
Right.
the experience that they want? It'll come out, I'll benefit one way or the other. I may not like make a ton off of if I'm doing a
That
certain type,
particular trip.
but
Yep.
as long as I go out of my way, check all their boxes, make sure they're
Absolutely.
having a great experience, that referral
And then
that
they're going to come back to you and they're going to refer their friends to you. Right. Exactly. It
so
all
it is,
it all pans out.
and it's extremely important for agents to go above and beyond because the way we grow our business is through word of mouth. That's the best way, word of mouth and referrals. So if you are getting an agent referral from multiple people, that agent's doing their job. So
Right.
keep that in mind. Read their reviews, listen or find out some past clients that they've had, get some information like that. That's how they're going to do right by you.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, and they're a one-stop shop. So you really can't go wrong. They're doing your research, they're booking your travel, they're following up with you after the trip to ask you how your trip was and how you would rate it and how you would review it. And then we use that information to then guide us to the next trip and the next client. Like, no, I wouldn't send them to this resort because my clients just said they had an awful experience there. Or, yeah, I know I can send them to this resort because they had an amazing experience. So, but
Right.
I don't get a lot of feedback of, oh, this was a horrible resort because we do our job beforehand and, you know, we send them to places that are good.
Right. But you know what is good feedback that helps with the next client is, say a client comes back and says, "Oh, this was such a great party atmosphere." But your next client doesn't want that party atmosphere. So even though that resort or that cruise or whatever was great, it's not a
For
good
that
fit
client,
for that client. So
right?
good feedback is what, and good reviews from our clients are also what gets us to the next step for the next client, making sure we're fitting them in the right thing.
Absolutely. Agree.
All right. So, what can go wrong if you don't book with a travel agent? So, let's talk
Oh,
about some of the things that, and we've heard a few things in the media, and especially social media lately, about some incidences that have been happening.
yeah, absolutely. Well, since I know you're a huge TikToker and you look at a lot of TikToks and that's been prevalent in the social media, I'm gonna let you go ahead and lead us into this, and I'll come
Okay.
back around with other opportunities or
Okay.
things that I've
So,
found.
I'm going to briefly touch on one of the things that I had been following. It was the beginning of September. I saw a TikTok that um, four people were getting on a cruise. Two of them did not make it on the cruise. And during that whole thing, when they were explaining what, and I'll go in depth into the story in a little bit, but this kind of gets us back. The person telling the story was like, the travel agent messed up, travel agent messed up. And it freaked me out because I was like, oh, I'm following this because I want to know what this person did so I don't make that mistake. Come to
Right.
find out, and I'll explain this in a little bit, they booked through a third party. So a
Yep.
lot of people that do their own booking book through third parties such as Expedia, Travelocity, Orbitz, Kayak, Hotels.com even. All of those are third party bookings.
Cruising.com, which is
Cruising.com.
awful. Like
Yeah,
they'll book a room, they'll sell you a room, and then you show up and you don't even have that room when you get on the ship.
right. Because
It was a good deal. It was a good
right,
deal.
cruise lines do the same thing. It's not as often, but they overbook and slash oversell just like airlines do. So somebody's
Yep.
getting bumped.
Yep.
But if you're booking through a third party, you've entered a third party agreement with that company.
With fine print typically that you didn't
So if
read.
you think you are booking, say, like a Marriott hotel and you're booking out hotels.com, you're making that agreement with hotels.com, not Marriott.
Not
So if
Marriott.
something happens and you get to your hotel and it's not what you wanted, they don't have the right room.
Or they don't even have your reservation. You don't exist in their
What
system.
they're going to tell you at that Marriott check-in desk is, sorry, you have to reach back out to hotels.com. What hotel and I'm not going to, just kind of shit on hotels.com. What I'm going to, because there's all kinds, but let's just say third party website. Let's use those words because I don't want to say this was specific to that website. So if you book through a third party to Marriott, Marriott's like, oh, we don't have it, or we didn't get your reservation, or this is, yeah, they said you could have a king bed, but all we have available is queen. You need to go back to your third party. Your third party is going to say, well, you need to talk to the hotel.
If
At
you
that
can
point,
even get through their customer service, because
correct.
that's the challenge too. Third parties known for let's avoid, avoid, avoid.
Yeah. So it's important that you book through directly through the vendor. That's what we as travel agents do. We book through
That's
the
what we do.
vendor. Now, the next question is, well, aren't travel agents third parties? Technically, yes.
Technically. Hmm.
But what we're doing that's different than those third party online services is we are booking directly at that vendor in your name. So when we book through like Royal Caribbean for a cruise, your card is getting charged from Royal Caribbean. It's not getting
Right.
charged by my company, it's getting charged by Royal Caribbean. I'm just facilitating the information between the two. Let's also say
Right.
you get out on this cruise and something happens and lost some paperwork, or you whatever, something's gone wrong and you need something changed, or your flight shifted or whatever.
Right.
That's where we step in and we tell you, take a deep breath, go grab a coffee or a glass of wine, and we're going
We'll
to
fix
fix
it.
this for you.
We're
Your
going to
third
resolve
party
this issue.
sites are not going to do that. Most of
Absolutely.
all. I'm not going to say they all, because there might be some that we just haven't found that do that. So it's important to understand that, yes, booking with a travel agent is using a third party, but we are not booking your travel through a third party. We are going directly to the vendor.
Correct.
So let's talk about some examples of, and this is where I'll come back to that TikTok one. So let me go into detail about this TikTok one. As I said, 4 people were getting on this cruise. Cruise all been paid for. 2 get on, 2 get stuck in check-in. What's it called? I'm losing my words. At the port.
When you, well, yeah,
No,
that's check-in.
no, but they use a different word. I can't remember what it's called.
Embarkation.
Yeah, they're right there. They're checking in. They get pushed to a side, get put hold because there's some issues. All their stuff's been paid for. Like both when they call, this was through Royal Caribbean, both when they call Royal Caribbean and the guy standing right there checking them in are telling them, yeah, your cruise is paid for, but we can't put you on there. The person posting the story was talking about, oh, the travel agent messed up. There must be something going on. What happened? These 2 people could not get on. Their luggage was already on the ship. That was kind of their luggage, and their 2 traveling partners were already on the
I
ship.
would cry. They
So,
probably cried.
and they got there early. So this was like 4 or 5 hours in the making of them trying to figure this out. And the whole time they're telling the story, they're like, the travel agent's telling me this, the travel agent's that. Well, and I'm freaking out listening, thinking, oh gosh, what did they do? Because I don't ever want to make this mistake. So I followed this story and then all the other people that were stitching it and just like, what is going on? When the update came through, they did not use a travel agent. They used cruising.com. And what had happened, now I'm going to say what's out there on that's already out there. I obviously am not party to the behind the scenes of this. I don't know these people. I don't 100% know the facts. So I'm just going to tell you what's out there on social media. The theory was they got bumped because the ship was overbooked. The
Yep,
first
that
people
happens.
to get bumped when either a flight, a hotel, or a cruise, anything like that is overbooked, is going to be those third party reservations.
Right.
That's the pecking order, the hierarchy of it.
But in our situation, because we booked directly through Royal or the vendor, we're really not considered third party. You have a spot, you have a room
Yes,
on that ship
because
for
you're
sure.
booked with Royal Caribbean. Now, I will say, I did some research on this because now this is outside of the story. I wanted to know more about overbooking. It happens nowhere near as what it happens on airplanes. But what I read, if it's a legit bump from the cruise line, they will tell you well in advance. Like they give you some notifications before. These people didn't get notice until they were at check-in.
That's the worst.
So there are times, and it's not just about overbooking. I was reading that sometimes it's maintenance. Sometimes something's happened to the room, or it's like during and post COVID, they had to do spacing, so they had to shift things around. There are legit reasons why a cruise line might have to bump you. And in the stories and the articles that I read, the cruise line usually tries to make you whole. Doesn't always happen, but the majority of them, they do try to make you whole in one way or other.
Yeah.
It still doesn't solve the problem that you now have vacation plans, you can't go. So it's a bummer. But in this case of the TikTok people, the final update I saw was there was a chargeback of something on their card, and no one is 100% satisfied with the answer. But why I brought this up is because one, at first they started saying the travel agent messed up. Travel agent had nothing to do with this. You were working with customer service at cruising.com.
Right.
You were not working with a travel agent. You were not getting the same person every time you call back.
Well, they're calling a travel agent, their representative customer service, right? Their cruising.com
Yes. Yeah.
customer
They were
service.
using the wrong term, which we all have used. And when I read the comments on this video, a lot of people didn't realize that cruising.com and other third party sites like that aren't technically travel agents. They are really just the customer service. And
Yeah,
a lot of that customer service is outsourced. So it's not even necessarily in house. So that's
right.
just, that was a hot mess. And I was very glad that it was not the result of a travel agent. And it was just, and honestly, I don't think they've had a satisfactory resolution, and they're
Right.
working on it. So I'm still following it, and I'll give you guys an update later. Now that's an example of something that I've heard and read about, blah blah. And I found plenty on Reddit where one of the stories I read on Reddit, which I love Reddit as much as I love TikTok, was a guy had booked a car rental, went to pick it up. There was two things that went wrong with it. One was the insurance that they booked through the third party was not accepted by that company when they act by the company
Yikes.
did. It was the third party's insurance. And they kept telling them, hey, when they went to pick up their car and they said, oh, I've already got this. And I don't know if they showed it to him or whatever. He was like, the customer service rep of the car rental said, sorry, we don't accept that insurance. It doesn't cover your car. So then they tried to cancel it from the third party site, and it took them a long time to get their money back. A long time. So
Yeah.
it's not just cruising, planes, your hotels, it's your car rentals,
Right. Everything.
that. My personal experience I had with booking third party that I didn't know I was booking third party. I was using my credit card points. So I had I'm not going to say the credit card, but I had a travel credit card where every time I used the credit card, I was racking up points. This was before I became a travel agent, got my special perks. This is my way of paying for the travel that I liked, was I was racking up points. I needed a handicap accessible suite because I was traveling with someone in a wheelchair who needed handicap accessible room. I went through my credit card, picked the hotel from my credit card. I picked the hotel company. This was it was a Hilton, which I love Hiltons.
Hilton's nice. Yep.
Right. So I had been there before. I had not been to that one, but I used Hilton's. I really liked it. I was able to pick my room. Like, you know how it looks as if I was on the Hilton
Right.
site. When
Yep.
I got to the hotel, we went upstairs to check in, or we checked in, went up to our room, not handicap
Gotcha.
accessible.
Oh no.
I was like really upset because I was traveling with a person in a
I
motorized
mean,
wheel. Like, they cannot.
yeah, there's
They were in a power chair.
absolutely.
This was not an option. So I go downstairs and I asked them, I said, hey, here's my confirmation that says handicap accessible room. And she said, I'm sorry, you booked through a third party and we just don't have any. We were at an event. We were in town for an event. So they were booked everywhere. And she's like, I can't move you to an accessible room. They were amazing, but they could not give me my room. I will say they absolutely worked with me, but she talked to me and I said, what do you mean I booked through a third party? I booked through my credit card and selected the Hilton and picked and did all this stuff and that where I thought, and she's like, no, right here it says you booked through Priceline.com. Didn't even say my credit card company, didn't say like it was booked through Priceline.com.
Yeah, you got duped.
And they could not give me, they had no handicap accessible rooms because FI, there's never enough handicap accessible rooms at most hotels. So just a side note.
That's a whole another
Yeah, if
issue
you need
or
one,
episode
you need to book early for your handicap.
in advance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did do, I will say Hilton went out of their way. She checked on us a couple of times. The room, we had one with the bedroom, the living room, and the kitchen.
Yeah.
So we were just able to move some furniture. She did say we can try to find bigger rooms. She was totally going to put us in the bigger room if we needed. And if she had it, like they were working with us, but we were able to move some furniture around and make it work. Was it ideal? No, the bathroom wasn't, he couldn't get his wheelchair through the bathroom. So we had to shift and help him that way. So ever since then, I don't even use that card anymore.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
Lesson learned. That's a hard lesson to learn.
So just as another thing, if you're booking through your credit cards, if you're booking through things like that, ask them, are they booking through third party or are they going directly to the vendor? That's
Absolutely.
have you had
Definitely
any
no.
experiences where you booked and it or having cut clients, things that pop up?
Well, no, I always book direct through the vendor, but I will say that I had a client going to in the UK and they were traveling around and it was through Rail Booker, so they were traveling by rail. And I did find out in advance, like a day before they left for their trip, that there was going to be a strike on the rail line. And so they were, it was a 24-hour strike. They weren't running the rail lines. So I had to scramble and then get a reservation so that they either left a day early or stayed a day later and got a hotel room for an extra night that night and then had to change their itinerary a bit because there was a strike. Now, if you book through a third party vendor, they're not going to be diligent and tell you all that information. You're going to be there in another country and then you're going to be essentially fucked because they would have no way of knowing what I had knowledge because I've built this vested relationship with rail bookers. And so I'm booking directly with them, but then their customer service is, you know, giving me all the inside scoops so I can make adjustments for my client. So I absolutely have dealt with when things can go wrong, but I salvaged it because I was able to work directly with my vendor to fix that for my clients.
That's awesome. So that's just another check, box for.
And they were thankful. They actually were like, Denise, I don't know what I would have done if you didn't let us know. Like we would have been stuck in another country, no way to get to our next port or our next, destination. And we really appreciate you. That's why we're so glad we booked with a travel agent.
And that's the thing. You're a good travel agent is keeping up with the before, during, and after their clients' trips.
Absolutely.
Like with this, when we were just having the scare a couple of days ago about the government shutting down, I have
Right.
clients that are going to national parks in a couple weeks. If the government had shut down, national
The
parks.
national parks shut down.
So
Hmm.
as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I got to come up with a backup plan. I started, I didn't even reach out to them and tell them, oh, this might be an issue.
Because you,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't
you don't
want them
want
to
to
be
worry
connected.
them. That's not,
Right.
yeah.
I
We
was
do
just
a lot of behind the scenes worrying for our
yes.
clients.
And we've got to keep up with all things travel. So like I'm subscribed on LinkedIn to the FAA, to the actual corporations of some of these vendors. So if they announce something, weather
Yep.
stations like in different parts of the country or the world, I've got, these little things about weather so that I can keep track and get alerts if
Yes.
something changes.
Yep.
They're
If a
all
hurricane's brewing in the ocean, we know about it. And if
exactly.
we've got a client that's headed to Bermuda and so is the hurricane, then we're on it. We're tracking it. We're trying to figure out next options. So, yeah, we do a lot of behind the scenes just so you can show up and have an amazing vacation. And that's our job. That's what we like to do.
And yeah, like you said, weather's a big issue. I'm trying to think of some other things. Oh, paperwork. It's our job, or it
Know
should.
what documentation you have to have in order to get to where you need to be.
Yeah, when I did a quote for an Egypt trip, I not only do you need your passport, but you also have to have a specific type of visa. I didn't know that until
Hmm.
I started researching the travel there. So it's our job to make sure you have the correct paperwork. If there are any
Absolutely.
requirements to enter that country, if there are requirements to leave that country, because there are some in some countries, when you go through customs, there are things that are allowed and aren't allowed. Like those are the things we would tell you before you go. Like here are the things, do not take this and some of like do not take this into this country,
Right.
not bring this back from this country because it's not going to pass. And they're not, I'm not talking
Right.
about legal stuff, I'm talking about things that we would think are
Absolutely.
legal.
And especially if you're traveling with your pets, that's a whole nother level of they have to have certain vaccinations. They have to have them within a certain amount of time for traveling for the trip. Some places are a lot more lenient, but places like Aruba and stuff are very strict with bringing pets into the country. So that is something that your agent would find out for you what the qualifications are in order the requirements to get into the country when traveling with a pet. So this is all the kind of backdoor, the behind the scenes things that we do for our clients.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think the next thing we were going to talk about is, when things aren't going great, what do you want? You want travel protection. What we always try to offer travel protection. You want to make sure you're protecting that trip. If you get ill, if your luggage gets lost, Cheryl doesn't know where her bag is to this day.
I
Um,
know. Yes. I did not have travel protection, but the airlines did fix it for me. But I still haven't found that beautiful, funky bag.
So, but yeah, we highly recommend travel protection, and typically we go with the ones that are offered directly through the vendor. Now, if you want to get supplemental insurance, we have access to that, but we don't try to push like one insurance versus another. You do want to do your research or say, this is what I want and this is what I need for that trip. So, but travel protection is worth its weight in gold. I will tell you that. If you get injured or sick when you're in a different country, that's part of what that covers. If you don't have travel protection, that's all on you. Getting home, getting, help, getting care, and that can be super expensive, exorbitantly high. So that's why and I make people even sign something. If they say I don't want travel protection, I make them sign a waiver saying I decline travel protection because I've had people come back. I've had people book with somebody else and then be like, I didn't get travel protection. And I just realized that, my son's passport is expired and we're supposed to leave like tomorrow. It's hard for me to help if, you turn that down. Or during COVID, a Disney trip was ruined because they were getting ready to pack. They declined the travel protection and they weren't out the whole amount, but they were out a good portion of they did have to pay a cancellation fee even during COVID. And it's not their fault. You can't help whether or not you get COVID, but if you don't have that travel protection, Disney's a pretty pricey vendor to decline travel protection for because, you know, those trips are not cheap.
Yeah.
So definitely.
And there are, like you said, we usually typically will first recommend getting the insurance that the vendor provides, but then there are multiple legit companies out there that offer that their focus is travel protection. And they offer such a wide variety of what you might need to cover.
Right.
Even if you're
Yeah.
just going on a weekend trip, you can get coverage for that to cover it. Even if you're not taking a rental car, you can get coverage for driving from here to there. You can get coverage for getting there or your car breaking down on the way and you miss your check-in at your hotel and you miss that night, or you need to stay closer to your 5 hours from your destination and your car breaks down. Your travel protection can get you cover that hotel. So
Right.
it's not even the big trips. You can get travel protection for your small weekend or week getaways
Sure.
that you're driving to.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So all that's to say, can you book by yourself? Can anybody go out there and book travel? Absolutely. The
You
perks,
can.
right. Are you getting a better service if you
Nope.
use a travel agent though?
Oh, if you use a travel agent, absolutely you're getting better service. Absolutely. And you're not paying anything extra for it. So
Right.
what do you have to lose? Like it's silly. But, live and learn.
Yeah. Well, this was very informative. It was nice. I'll tell you, doing some of that research on guys, go out there on Reddit, look at travel disaster. Not travel disasters. What's the word I'm looking for? Travel interruptions and things like that.
Travel nightmares.
Yeah, because I tell you, I read some interesting stories. Go look. Also, I'm not going to call out the specific companies, but those top third market or third party services for booking group or booking any travel, go look at their rating on the Better Business Bureau.
Better
I
business
did
bureau, right?
that. I was
Usually if it's like super cheap and it seems too good to be true, it's because it's too good to be true.
yes, and I'll say we don't compete with their pricing. If someone
We
comes
don't.
to me and says, "Can you get me a better deal than what I found on, this
I don't
third?"
even try. I say I don't know what your price is. I can get you a quote on the actual vendor and you can decide. But I've heard so many horror stories of people that have tried to, like, when the travel agent couldn't come back with a lower, they booked it themselves and then they didn't have a room, or it was in a really, it wasn't what was advertised. What they saw on the screen and what they saw when they showed up were
Right.
completely different.
Or let's
So, I mean,
They did. Because I have used, before I got more knowledgeable, I used those third party booking sites. And let's say you arrive at your destination or you're on your way, everything's legit and everything's working out, checking out. If something happens and you need to change anything, you are going to have more trouble changing
you
anything
can't do it
about
on your
your
own.
reservation with those
Hmm.
third party sites than you would
Absolutely.
directly through a vendor. So,
Yep. True, true. So
but if
true.
you have any more questions about the differences or anything that we talked about today, you can shoot us a message or drop it in the chats on Facebook when we post this. Because we're always curious
Absolutely.
to know why you don't choose a travel agent. Let us know what your hesitation is, and maybe we can reassure you or find you that information.
Or if you or if you did book it on your own and it was a nightmare situation and you struggled with the customer service through the third party vendor and you thought you were getting a great deal and it ended up being awful, you can let us know about that too. We we hear a lot about those too. So yeah, give us your feedback, your tales, your stories. But I think that is going to wrap up episode 6 of Suitcase Divas. So we went there.
We
There you
did.
have it.
Thank you guys.